So I wanted to show one of my favorite setups and one particular piece of this. This is kind of in my, what I refer to as my go pack, because I can't stand the term bug out bag or something like that, because I'm not surviving the apocalypse, I'm just trying to have fun. But this is my, at least part of my cook kit, and I want to show you my stove, but I'll show you because all these pieces are going to be shown. So out of this set here, I've got a TOAKS, I think it's 850 mil titanium pot, and then a I don't know how many, it's like a little more than a liter, I think, clean canteen stainless steel. It obviously fits inside those. And then what I'm going to talk about today is the TOAKS titanium ultralight stove. So it comes in 3 pieces just like this. And the way that it's set up is you pull this outer ring off, and then that one slips through. You flip that outer ring around, and it slides back in, and you're left with, you know, this stove. So there's a couple different names for this style of stove. I think some people call it a rocket stove or gasifying stove. And the principle here is that there's a, you can kind of see, so there's going to be a layer of air around the burn chamber here, and then it's got the main input of air. But what happens is as the chamber heats up, it heats up the air running through here, and the air goes into these holes here, and that superheated air will actually reignite, and you'll see flames coming out of those holes, even though you don't see any fuel source there, and that's the extra kind of gaseous ignition occurring. So we're going to go through this stove here. So I've made one modification to it, and that is because, so the main purpose for me of this stove is to be able to use it with this 850 mil cup. And one problem, and I talked to TOAKS before this, and they were really descriptive and helped me out on what I needed here, or if it would work out, is I want it to sit with this. Unfortunately, it slips through, right? And I need it to sit on top. So what I did is I have some titanium stakes that I use for staking out my tarp, but I also can use 2 of them as pot stands. So I drilled some holes, you can see them, doesn't really matter all that much, through the top here, so that I can run these pot stands through there, and then I can set my cup on there, no problem. So I guess before I start, I should show you, you need very little wood to use this wood stove here, and I've got just a bundle of dry sticks, nothing impressive. It took me less than probably 30 seconds to find that amount of fuel material, and I can guarantee you that I could not boil a cup of water very easily on an open fire with that amount of wood. But it's absolutely simple with this setup. So I'm going to break these sticks up into, I usually do about a palm length. That's about right for, you want them to be about the right length for this chamber here. You can kind of see, you don't want them to go above those holes all that much. So I'm going to do about palm width for their length. Okay, so I've broken up a handful of sticks, and so this is primarily hardwood, if not all hardwood. I would suggest nothing bigger than the width of your thumb, so that's a pretty reasonable size. But the way that I load this, and I'm sure there's other people that load this differently and have luck, is I take them into a big bundle like this, and then I just place them upright in here. And the goal here is to fill this chamber pretty tightly, as long as you want a variable diameter of sticks here. You want some pretty thin stuff, some pretty thick stuff, and that'll give you enough. Thin stuff will help it start up and ignite, and then the thicker stuff will help it burn longer. If you use all thin stuff, you might not get a boil of water with a single loading. So I actually haven't broken up enough. I'm gonna get, another couple handfuls here, and then we'll get started. Okay, so I've got it pretty well full now, You could probably put some more in there, but that should be plenty for this burn for our cup of hot chocolate here. So you can see it's a little bit above the edge of that rim, which isn't ideal, but it's not a huge deal. So we're going to drop that down into that long chamber, and then again slide it into here. So we've got it all set up here. So we're going to clear the area where it burns because it doesn't have any, all the ash is going to, all the hot embers are going to fall through here onto the ground. So we just clear off the ground here. Place it like that. Try to, if anything, have a little bit of a divot to ensure that there's plenty of airflow into those bottom holes, because it is relatively close to the ground. There's only about maybe 3/4 of a centimeter of space for airflow. You want to make sure there's plenty of airflow in that bottom. Place it down. I'm going to throw my titanium stakes inside here, so we've got those ready. Okay, so now I know in a lot of these types of reviews, people use their flint and steel and their ferrocerium rod. I'm out here to enjoy myself, so I have what's called Hagwons Fire Gel, I think. One of the only things from Coglin I've ever found to be useful. This stuff burns incredibly well. Super cheap, good form, and then I can just have a little vial of this stuff. So, got that. I'm going to light this. Throw that right in the center here, and then I've just got a little bundle of some smaller twigs that I'm going to drop on top here. And the whole purpose of that is I just want to get the fire going throughout the entire thing. So these twigs will kind of move the fire around the chamber here. Again, there's no precision here, and that's really beautiful about this. And the reason I'm reviewing this is I've tried the typical box stoves. I had I think it was a Bush Buddy stove, and I hated it. It smoked. It was constantly deprived of oxygen. So I felt like I always had to be lifting off my pot. I modified it in some ways to try to give it better air. It was a little bit better, but it still was just not impressive. So I saw this stove and thought the design was interesting. Really liked it. It's ultralight. You know, it's all titanium. I don't know the exact weight on it. You can look that up yourself, but it's lightweight and it fits that perfect form factor where it doesn't take up space. It just sits around my bottle. All right, so it's not actually started yet. This is just the hot twigs burning. And it'll eventually, I'm going to throw some more on there. It's going to eventually get into the actual burn chamber here. But I'm going to put my cup on pretty soon here. You can see already there's not a lot of smoke, but once this tough stuff on top burns off and you're just burning the actual burn chamber, there'll be almost no smoke. Alright, so we're going to put my hot stands through here. And we're going to boil about 2 cups of, I don't know, let's see, it'll be probably about 400 mils then, not 2 cups of water for my hot chocolate here. The water is almost near freezing, so that's about as cold as it gets. I'll throw this in here. That's about right. I'm going to give the stove a little bit of a puff of air, and that'll help to kind of push the flame down into the burn chamber. Throw a little more on there. I'd say the biggest challenge of this stove is getting it started, because I really suggest loading that chamber first. It works really well, however, then you've got to make that flame get down into the burn chamber, which can be a little bit of a challenge. Okay, so we've got about 400 mils of water in our cup here. I'm going to just pop it on there. See, it gives a little bit of a airspace in between the top of the rim there too, and the cup. So there's one other thing I want to show you, and this is not part of the stove. There we go. It's starting to actually get, so see that flame's picking up? I don't know if you can tell if it's starting to burn from the actual holes. It looks like it's maybe possible to see that. Eventually it'll stop smoking here, but it's already smoking a lot less than those box stoves that I'm not a fan of. Alright, so in windy conditions, like any stove, it just is much less efficient, harder to boil. So I found on AliExpress, it's one of those Chinese, you know, sells all sorts of cheap crap type stores online, this titanium windscreen, and it's 19 centimeters tall. So it's really ideal for this stove. Let me show you. So it has this cutout here which fits perfectly where the fuel kind of input spot is, and you just wrap it around, and it's got a little magnetic piece here and then it is the perfect height to go around the stove. A little bit awkward, it's a little flimsy. I mean, it's less than an ounce. I think it's like half an ounce, so there's no weight loss or weight cost to it. And I've tried to put some more holes in the bottom of it to make sure there's plenty of airflow for this. I think it smokes a little bit more when the windscreen's on, which would suggest there's a little bit lack of oxygen. Maybe that's true, I'm not sure. I can put some more holes in there. But yeah, so we're just gonna let this run, and I shouldn't need to load the fuel at all for just a single boil like this for, you know, 400 mils of water. It should boil it as is. So we're gonna come back when it starts. Just to give you a sense, right now the time is about 9:40-ish. So for any of those who are fanatics for how long it takes. All right, we'll be back. All right, so we're about near boiling here. I took the windscreen off since it's kind of my own thing, and I'm not sure if it's giving enough oxygen right now, so I'll mess with that later. And this is kind of talking more about the stove. So we're at about 4 minutes later. We're getting near seeing some bubbles in the bottom. I haven't done anything to the stove. I haven't added fuel. I haven't blown on it. It's still burning really well. A couple other things I wanted to mention. This is the large version. They just came out with a smaller version. So the smaller one I think will go inside the 850 ml cup, as opposed to this one that goes around it. I just prefer the bigger version anyway. I don't know if I'll get the smaller one unless I find a really good price on it. It's one of the downsides is it's really tall. It's unavoidable in some ways, but because it's so tall, it's a bit wobbly, so you've got to make sure you're really on a stable surface here. You can see it wants to wobble with the water there, so just consider that. But that's really about it. You know, I've put a frying pan on here, and it cooks really well for frying up some meat or whatever I've got. Let's see if we probably almost at a boil. This is gonna be really close to boiling before it goes out. So obviously, if I did want to add more fuel, I'm not going to, because I want to make a point to see if we can do it without it, because that's really convenient about it. But I would just feed wood into this hole right here, somewhat haphazardly. And I've been able to burn this thing long enough to boil about this amount of water, and then actually boil an entire clean canteen's worth of water, and then fry up some, I think it was some Spam or something, so with just continually feeding firewood into it. It looks like we're almost about there. So it's been about 5 minutes. Ooh, and we already got a rolling boil. So really, really easy. There's less soot. I mean, there's still going to be soot. It's a fire. It's a wood fire, but because it burns so clean, you can see now that it's really burning. We're only seeing steam. We're not seeing any smoke, and that's because it's burning a lot cleaner than any of those box stoves. So I really suggest it. Give it a try. It was worth every penny for me, and I'll never look at those box stoves again. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. But have a good one.